All right, so I'm going to talk about Chris Watts and some of the stuff that's still coming out about that. As I kind of predicted, there's going to be more and more things that will come out about this case as time goes on, because obviously, as I said before, Chris Watts never really did admit to a lot of things early on, so there's a lot of things that are actually coming forward. He is supposedly in a prison in Wisconsin. If you don't remember, he had to be relocated from a prison in Colorado due to people who were obviously knowing about the case. I don't think there's any place that he can go where folks won't know about the case. So some speculate that he's in solitary confinement for his own protection. But there's going to be on Dr. Phill tomorrow. Um, he's going to basically talk about what the daughter Bella Watts said to Chris Watts and what his response was when all of this was going down. Now, this is, there's been so many people who have speculated so much because I think they really hate the mistress. And they talk about her and that they think that she played a part in it. And again, what I don't think a lot of folks understand is that there's a lot of videotape evidence everywhere. I mean, there's video that showed Shannan walking up to the home. Remember, the neighbor had a video camera that was kind of motion censored, and it showed the car leaving, which was her friend, Shannan Watts' friend, which is also named Nicole. But it showed the car leaving, but it didn't show Shannan Watts walking up to the door. Then, not long ago, they released video from the door that actually shows video showing Shannan Watts walking up to the door with her purse and her suitcase, right? And she's obviously very pregnant. You can tell in that video. And basically, the Shannan Watts' family has had I'm just looking at the article here that's talking about this, but and this is going to be on Dr. Phill, obviously. I think it's going to be a two-part thing, but they had one of their attorneys go in and actually talk to Chris Watts. Obviously, as a family, you want to know what's going on, because again, he just did not really say much. He made a claim against Shannan that she was trying to harm the kids and all this other stuff, which obviously none of that made sense at all. He did kind of hint around and say that, he had asked for a separation or whatever. I don't know if he said separation or divorce or whatever the case was, and that she went into a frenzy. Well, what they're saying is there's a little bit of truth to that. They got into a fight or argument. Not sure about what. Maybe it will come out on Dr. Phil's show, but he told the investigators and the attorneys that they got into an argument, to a fight. He told Shannan that he was having an affair and that he wanted a divorce. And so basically, she was arguing with him. He then, at that point, was attacking her at that point. Bella comes in and says, "What are you doing to my mommy?" Something to that effect, right? And so that's all of what this article talks about. I'm going to put a link at the bottom that shows this actual article that's in Denver. But Bella walked in and she said, "What are you doing with mommy?" And I don't know what the response is. The article doesn't go into that, but it's going to actually talk a little bit more about this. Some people have speculated that, one of the children was alive and was walking to the car and that type of thing. I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't know if that's the case. There's nothing that really has said that is the case. But when you look at Shannan, who was very pregnant, and the fact that he was able to just do that, it blows my mind. Still, it blows my mind, and it's very, very sad. There's a point in time when, as a husband, you would want to protect your wife, obviously, I've talked about this, how Noelle, when she was pregnant, I wanted to make sure that she was almost in bubble paper because I didn't want her to bump into anything and that type of thing. I was always worried about it. Or if she was picking up something too heavy, that was my concern, And as we had more kids, especially when she was pregnant with Zara, Zoe wanted to jump up in her lap and wanted her to pick her up and all that type of stuff, which is somewhat fine. But at the same point, I didn't want that to even happen because I didn't want there to be too much strain on the well. My point is that you would think a husband would definitely care. I've been married before. I had a wife prior to Noelle that was not the greatest. But still, I would care enough to say, it's not working, I'm going to leave. We had plenty of arguments and all that type of thing and disagreed about a lot of different things. But it doesn't make any sort of sense that someone would do that. People are giving Chris Watts the benefit of the doubt and saying that, he's this quiet, guy and, she was just this aggressor. But, I mean, the proof is saying otherwise. I'm not saying that she was an angel. There are some people saying people are acting like she's an angel and she's just nice, this, that, and the other. People have attitudes. I mean, but that doesn't justify what he did. There's no excuse at all that someone can lay out and point out about Shannan all day long to excuse what he did. There's nothing in his background. Maybe he was brought up really hard. Maybe his parents, this, that, and the other. None of that, because there are many people who've had a much worse life than Chris Watts had, and they never will do any of the things that he did. There's no excuse of it. He's just a coward. And I really and truly do think that there was probably some domestic violence in there from him to her that just wasn't reported. I mean, there's a lot of things pointing to the fact that, yeah, it could have everything built up at one point and he just exploded. Could have been. I don't doubt that. Could have been. But it still doesn't excuse what he did. And in terms of not just only to his wife, but she was pregnant. You would think that would be enough. And if that's not enough, what about your two other kids, which he had to go through and methodically do what he did? So just those three acts right there is enough for most sane people to say it's just unbelievable. And then what he did afterwards to get rid of them, as if they were just garbage. So, there's a lot of people who are making so many different types of excuses for him or trying to blame her and this, that, and the other. But there's more stuff coming out and the man he's not getting out. He's not going anywhere. He's stuck in there. He's had nothing but time to think about it. He's still going to get his letters and he's still going to get a lot of people who sit there and thirst after him. But I mean, it basically, they're talking about how CBS 4, which is where this is coming from, I'm looking at, is going to share the redacted version of Watts' lengthy prison confession. Officials tell CBS 4 the interview involved federal, state, and local investigators. So for those who are saying that, maybe the mistress was this or that, or maybe she put it in his head, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that this happened at the spur of the moment. And the reason why it looks that way, like it wasn't like a planned thing, was because he was so messy with what he did. You know what I mean? Like it was not well thought out, you could tell. And I think that when you have he wasn't expecting his Shannan Watts' friend, the other Nicole, to actually be on top of things the way that she was and really being there and just knowing that, hey, her friend is not someone that just misses doctor's appointments or doesn't answer phone calls. He wasn't really expecting that. And so I think that if it was something where he had planned this and it was this whole thing that involved his mistress and all that, it would have been a completely different sort of set of circumstances. So I think this happened, I mean, based on what they're saying, that basically, they got into an argument. He was saying, hey, I have a mistress. I'm going to leave. obviously any woman's going to be pissed whenever you say, hey, I've been cheating on you, even though you've been suspicious of this. And I've said, no, actually I have, and I'm about to bounce. She's a pregnant woman who's now going to be abandoned by her husband that she's had for years, 3 kids, and basically say, well, deuces. I mean, I don't know of any woman on the planet. I don't know of any married woman anywhere that wouldn't have an issue with that. So, of course, she's going to argue and fuss and fight and yell and do a bunch of different things. I mean, she's human. But apparently, that was it. And, during the whole thing, when he was right in the middle of what he was doing, Bella caught him. And she also fought for her life as well. It's such a horrible, horrible story and I've said this before, it will continue. There's a lot of people that don't want to hear about it. Nobody cares that they don't. But the reason why the story will continue to keep moving forward and more things are coming out is because there's so many things that are just so hidden. And that is what, I think if everything was out in the open, I think that if he just said, you know what, game is over, put everything out there, it would not be as under a microscope as it has been. But you basically have all of these different agencies involved. You have all these different attorneys involved. You have Shannan Watts' family and friends, obviously, that want to get to the bottom of this, like get the details as to why you did what you did. I mean, if you had a mistress, I can understand you leaving. Again, the thing to me is not the whole mistress thing. I mean, that's morally not right, I guess. Like having a mistress and all that on the side, you have a pregnant wife. Yeah, people can judge you morally. Whatever. I think the big issue is, I mean, obviously what he did. I mean, that's the core of it. And I think that had he came out and just said, this is what happened. And during the whole police interview and the interrogation and all that, okay, he lied. Most people are going to go in there and they're going to lie, right? But when it was time to actually speak up, and I think that the reason why he gave the story he did to investigators after he said that, that Shannan was attacking the kids, so he retaliated against her, was because he thought that, okay, if I go this direction, I probably won't get any sort of prison time because they'll look at it as I'm trying to protect my kids, and she was the aggressor, this, that, and the other, and that the evidence showed otherwise. There was just too much evidence that showed otherwise. And then just the way that he handled everything afterwards, the interviews on TV, it just, you could tell the body language was just basically screaming, I did stuff. Excuse me. And he didn't show any sort of concern. He knew that they were not going to come back. He knew that they were not going to make a phone call or any of that type of stuff. He said that he could stay. And what's really, really scary that no one's really mentioned is that they had a family friend couple where he stayed the night with them. So after he did what he did, he couldn't stay in the house. I wonder why. So he spent the night with family friends. And they didn't even know that he had did what he did. I mean, they knew that something was up, that at that time they thought she was missing, but it's just nasty. Anyhow, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. The Dr. Phill show, they're talking about it's going to actually air 4 p.m. on Tuesday. This article was written today. And then they said the second part will air the following week on Monday, March 11th. So anyhow, make sure that you guys like, share, and subscribe. I'll put the link of this article down in the description box below. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.